Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've done a video, and for those of you who were at the recent Gold Coast Prophecy Conference, you would understand exactly why I haven't been able to do a video in a while. Wow, it has been quite a whirlwind, but that's what today's video is all about, just to give you kind of a debrief. In fact, here it is. That was a week ago. I'm still debriefing. I still have no voice left, as you can probably tell, my lovely voice. But man, it went off. It was amazing. And if you weren't at the conference, look, I would highly recommend that you go and get the live stream. It's still available for the next, I think, 25 days or something like that. Look, I'm going back myself and rewatching all the stuff because I missed a lot of things, but there was so much information there that to go back and to digest it again, oh my gosh, you're going to catch things that you've never seen, or that you would have missed, that you might have missed. Now, I'm doing this video today. There's two things that I want to talk about today. Well, okay, actually three things. I just want to thank Pete Garcia. He gave me this beautiful cross here. Thank you so much, Pete. I really do appreciate that. I did say I was going to put it on my bookshelf, and that's where it is. So that's where it's going to reside. Thank you so much for that. Actually, if you actually wanted your own cross just like that, I think Pete has them for sale on his website right here, Rev310. So go check that out if you think that you might like something like that. So that being said, here are the two things I wanted to talk about today. One of which is right before the conference, I had a woman approach me with this little it was like a widget or something, a website where she was trying to get everybody's postcodes put together in one place. Now, I wish she had approached me maybe a week or two before this whole conference, but be that as it may, in the context that it came, there was no way I could, put that out there without it being vetted and everything like that. There was just so much going on. If you're watching this video, please contact me, though, at the Mighty Right, and I'm going to see what I can do for you. Because, yes, that is the whole purpose of this conference that I brought to the table, which was we want to bring everybody together because I know a lot of people are struggling. And if we can make that happen, absolutely we'll make that happen. Look, that's why I started themightyright.com. It was all about community. Folks, by the way, it is not about right wing. It's about righteousness. Hence, the mighty right. We are the mighty righteous. Let's not get political here. I live in Australia. I don't deal with that kind of stuff. So I know some of you do. I digress. So look, if that's you, please get in touch with me through the website. I'd love to hear from you. But the second thing that I want to talk about today, and I did, if you were at the conference, I did say this on the platform there. I kind of butchered the story a little bit. I'm going to try and tell it briefly here, but you need to know that this whole event, this was a God thing. Yes, I was there. I helped organize things, and there were some key things that were instrumental that I did because of what I do in production. This was, for me, this is just normal. But that's what I'm saying is that God used me, and what a privilege that is that God used me in this moment. So look, folks, the story goes like this. This all started with COVID. And here it is. For those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, you know a little bit about me. I was living in Melbourne with my daughter for better part of 11 years. And then COVID hit. And it was terrible. I almost lost my business in the middle of this. And ultimately, because I got kicked out of my church, way to go. But I got kicked out basically because I would not conform to what they wanted. And what they were doing was going directly against the Bible. That's a lesson in and of itself. That being said, my daughter and I left Melbourne, and we were looking to go to Queensland, and we were actually looking to go to the Sunshine Coast. And somewhere in the middle of looking at houses there, my daughter and I, we just kind of knew this is not the place for us. When you go from a place where it's like you've got everything in Melbourne, nice city where everything is at, within arm's reach, to this sleepy little beach community. It was very difficult for us to make that adjustment. Don't get me wrong. The whole area is absolutely beautiful, but it just wasn't going to work for us. And so we ended up the very next day looking down at the Gold Coast. And pretty much we just both felt in our spirit, this is great. This works for us. Can't explain it other than that. And there's a bit more to it than that. As a result of moving up to Queensland and reflecting at what was happening down in the Gold Coast, I did a video on Stockholm Syndrome. Now, look, if you don't know anything about Stockholm Syndrome, I highly recommend you watching this video right here, because this is this bizarre social thing that happens where basically the victim backs up the assailant with all the wrongdoings that the assailant has done to them. Bizarre phenomenon, but it is a real thing. So I did that video and sent it to a whole bunch of American pastors with trying to get them to realize, one, what was happening in Melbourne, and two, showing them that this could happen to you. This could happen to your city. Had I gone back to the United States instead of going to Queensland here, I actually had this plan where I was going to do this USA tour where I was going from one church to another and explaining, this is what's happening in Melbourne. Don't let it happen to your community. You need to stand up. Now, of all those pastors that I sent that video to, Tom Hughes was actually the only one who responded to me. And he basically sent me back an email saying, is this you in the video? And it's like, well, yeah, who else is going to do it other than me? And so I got a response back that basically said, well, Tom wants you on his show. What? I mean, that was not the intent of what I did. To be honest, folks, I really do, I lead a fairly private life. People don't need to know what's going on with me. And yes, I know I have a YouTube channel, but there's a reason for that, and I'm going to get to that. I did the show with Tom Hughes, and I had so much to say because I was really just coming off of this whole, COVID thing, atrocities that I saw down there. Many of which, even still to this day, I still can't even talk about here with getting dinged by the YouTube gods. I digress. All right. Anyway, but Tom liked me enough that he wanted me back on the show. And so I ended up doing, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 different shows. And somebody in the comments said, hey, how do we hear more about John? To be honest, folks, I was dreading doing any sort of YouTube or social media like that, because that's just not me. I could not care less, watch me, don't watch me. The Holy Spirit impressed it upon me. It's kind of like, well, John, I've given you this equipment, I've given you the knowledge, and I've given you a voice. What are you going to do with it? And this goes right back to the story of the talents. How many times are you even, God presses something on you and you choose not to? What ended up coming from that and doing the show more with Tom is that someone emailed Tom directly and said, hey, we live in the area. How do we get in touch with John? So I got that email back. They said, John, reach out to this guy if you want to. Don't reach out. It's up to you. Well, I chose to reach out to him. And of course, there's another little element, and he knows who it is, because there was another guy in the middle of that. Don't forgive me for that, for not mentioning him. But the guy who I really met was Dan the Fireman, or Dan. You've seen him on Tom Hughes' show twice here. That 30-minute coffee catch-up ended up being a 4-hour conversation. I wish I had lunch because I was starving by the end of it. But it was a great meetup, and I think we were both excited just to be able to find like-minded believers who were switched on, who knew what was happening here in Australia, and how all the craziness going on. So we kept in touch. I was asking Dan, look, I'm looking for a church. By that time I had been to, I don't know, half a dozen churches. Just wasn't a good fit. I said, Dan, are you going to church anywhere? Do you know anywhere good here in the Gold Coast? He said, no, I don't go to one, but there's a guy over in the central part of the Gold Coast who runs a Bible study. Those were his words, because I know it's actually a home church is what it is. I started attending this home church with this guy, Mark Wee and his wife, Wendy. Man, this is exactly what I needed, because we do 90-minute, just intense Bible studies where it's not just Mark talking about, because he's got degrees in all of this. He's very knowledgeable with all of this, but it becomes more of a conversation and an exchange. And I've always found personally that the best learning for me comes from the breaking down of things and talking about it and asking questions, answering questions, rather than just being, listening to some guy up on stage just telling you, this is how it is. That's just how I work. I have a feeling most of you actually work that way too. That being said, as part of being a part of that Bible study group, home church group, Mark and I got to talking, and we said, well, look, why don't we think about putting on a little conference here and have Tom Hughes come here? That's a great idea. We didn't know exactly where we were going to have it, but I reached out to Tom. Tom said, that's a great idea. And so Tom was going to come with one other guy. I can't even remember who it was at the time. And then I reached out to him again as we're looking for venues to even hold this. I reached out to Tom again. I was like, okay, Tom, we realized that 2 people aren't going to fill the whole thing. Can you bring more people? Well, next thing I know, there's 6 people coming to all this. It's like, oh, okay, great. Well, that's how the whole conference started. Now, here's the last part of the story that, again, this is a miracle. This is an absolute miracle. At the time, we were looking at possibly the Gold Coast Conference Center. Big conference center, the logistics to even pull something like that off, it's pretty extreme. I mean, you've got to worry about cameras and lighting and all sorts of things to hold something at a convention center like that. Mark, I don't know how it happened where he got this idea, but he says, you know what, I might have a place. There is a church here called the Dream Center. Now, I know a lot of you people, when you hear that name, you might think of the prosperity gospel. Well, the fact of the matter is it used to be a prosperity gospel church. And probably about 5-6 years ago, they actually, just changed their doctrine. Mark knew Rod, who owned the church. And now, of course, Aiden, his son, is actually the senior pastor of the church. Mark had this meeting with Rod, and what was supposed to be maybe a half-hour meeting, again, it turned into one of these 2, 3, 4 hour meetings. And Mark came back to me, he says, John, you're not going to believe this, but they have given up all the prosperity gospel thing. They're all about eschatology now and about Bible-based, faith-based believing. Church, this is right on par with really what we believe. I cannot explain this to you folks, but this was one of those moments where it's happened to me a few times, but this was very, very clear in this moment. The Holy Spirit just impressed it upon me in this moment. That's the church. That is the church. And even Rod, who, owns the church, he'll tell you, had it been any other person other than Mark, then he would not have rented out the building for a prophecy conference to anybody else. That's how this whole thing, folks, this is just a string of one thing after another, after another, after another, falling into place for this whole conference to happen. And folks, I'm telling you, it was absolutely outstanding. If you weren't there, I would definitely still encourage you to go get the live stream. But folks, that's my word of the day. And the whole example of what I'm trying to show you here is that God works within humbleness and obedience. It's not that I'm necessarily anybody special, because I'm not. It's just that God used me in a way that well, the truth of the matter is I feel so blessed that this is just one of those moments that God used me in this, and what a privilege that is to serve God. I would encourage you, if God is pressing something upon you, to be obedient in. Folks, just do it, because you never know what will come of it. In fact, I'll tell you right now, what's actually even come of this now is I am actually going to be at the Orlando, Florida Prophecy Conference coming up here the first week of March as a result of all of this. So look, if you see me there, say hi to me. I'm actually going to be working. So, but it'd be great to see and say hello to any of you folks that you might tune into my channel here. That would be great. I look forward to, going back to the US, seeing my mother for the first time in forever. And that's it, folks. Look, if you like this channel, well, first off, I'd say like the channel because it helps with the algorithm and gets it spread out there. If you feel that I'm worthy, I would, of course, appreciate the subscription. But if not, hey, I'm cool with that too. That's completely up to you. This is not a popularity contest for me. I really don't care about that. But that being said, what I do care about is that every single one of you is being fed by the word. That being said, folks, I hope to see you all next time.